How has gender been represented on screen, both historically and more recently? What was the effect of these representations for audiences and filmmakers? Historically, the film industry has been made up of predominantly men. Action films present a clear insight into this and how the lack of female representation off-screen has affected what presents on-screen. There are still relatively recent examples to showcase how the male gaze has influenced the style in which action films have been made, such as Suicide Squad and Transformers. This being said, there are also examples that show a trend towards changing from stereotypical depictions of passive, naive personalities to multi-dimensional figures that possess qualities of extreme resilience, strength, and grit. This is due in no small part to the increase of women behind the scenes as producers and directors. By analysing several action films, both past and present, this trend is evident as several aspects of filmmaking have gradually changed to better represent women. This includes costuming, prominence, and presentation of women in protagonist roles, and even subtle changes in the cinematography with the use of camera angles. In modern action films such as Birds of Prey, Captain Marvel, and WandaVision, costumes have been designed to be more realistic and less revealing in order to direct the attention of the audience to the female protagonist's performance rather than her appearance. Although this contemporary representation of women is becoming a more common theme incorporated with action films, the industry still has a long way to go in regards to female representation, both on and off the screen. Females have been commonly portrayed in action films as sexually idealized secondary characters with no agency, reliant on the masculine heroic protagonists. This can be seen in many films such as Transformers, where the female character played by Megan Fox is highly sexualized and used for her attractive appearance. Unrealistic costuming is used as well as sexually suggestive positioning of the actress. The film also includes an entirely unnecessary scene where she undresses in front of the camera. Many of the scenes with Megan Fox are also shot from behind. These often occur in moments of action, and so a passive audience may not realize they are unconsciously objectifying her. The angles that Michael Bay chooses to use show how the camera and therefore the audience is seeing Megan's character as an object as opposed to a fully formed person. This skewed representation is an example of how the male dominance in the film industry leads to a subjective viewpoint when shooting, otherwise known as the male gaze. Laura Mulvey, a prominent film theorist and feminist, coined the term the male gaze in her essay Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema in 1973. She states that the male gaze comes from the perspectives of the man behind the camera, the men in the scene, and the men in the audience. When women are shot in the male gaze, they become dehumanized and seen as only objects of beauty and sexual desire. Another example of this is Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad. Harley Quinn, played by Margot Robbie in the 2016 film, is constantly sexualized through the use of costuming and camera movement. In the scene when the protagonists are getting dressed, the camera slowly pans up Harley Quinn's body while she's in her underwear, starting from her legs and ending with her face. This shot is repeated many times during the film, and it implies that the least important part of the character is her head, and by extension her brain. After the slow pan up in the dressing scene, it then changes to a wide-angle shot, showing her surrounded by men, all objectifying her. Furthermore, the shorts she wears for the duration of the movie are essentially underwear, and the words, "Daddy's Little Monster," are printed on the shirt she puts on. This implies ownership of Harley by a male figure and a lack of agency for herself. In contrast, the Harley Quinn in Birds of Prey, released in 2020, is a prime example of filming a strong, attractive female protagonist without the influence of the male gaze. The obvious difference between the two movies is that Suicide Squad was directed by a man, whereas Birds of Prey was directed by a woman. In Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn is dressed in shorts. She still has sex appeal, she's still played by Margot Robbie, however the male gaze behind the camera is gone, replaced with female director Cathy Yan. There isn't a single slow pan up the body for the sake of voyeuristic pleasure, and if we compare the dancing scenes from both movies, it's clear to see that in one, she's dancing for the viewing pleasure of men, whereas in the other, she is dancing for herself because she enjoys it. She even goes so far as to break the legs of a man who dares sexualize her. According to the Center for Study of Women in TV and Film, there was a slight increase of the percentage of women behind the screen between 2016 and 2019. In the top 100 highest grossing films in 2016, 4% of the directors were women, which increased to 10.7% in 2019. While this is a technical increase, it is still an obviously male-dominated field and does not reflect the cinema-going community, 51% of which is made up of women. There is a clear distinction between superhero films directed by men and the ones directed by women. Films and television programs such as Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, WandaVision, and Birds of Prey all showcase strong female protagonists without resorting to sexualizing them. The male gaze is eliminated through the lack of a man behind the camera, as well as a more thoughtful blocking of men in the scenes. The audience is therefore less inclined to objectify the women in the films, as the costuming used in all these examples are more realistic for superheroes and the camera angles used do not compromise them. It is not only female directors who present women in a respectful light, however. Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League, released in 2021, is a prime example of how perspective can shift so dramatically through the use of dialogue and action. Many scenes from the original film are changed by only one or two lines and show how, without changing costuming, the audience is now presented with a strong, smart, female character as well as a fearless army of Amazons. The film industry has evolved since Laura Mulvey wrote her thesis and coined the term male gaze in 1973. Although it has improved in regards to female representation, it's been almost 50 years since her paper was published, and we are only now getting to a place of base respect for women on screen. So it begs the question, will there ever be true equality in the film industry?